Hello and welcome back to Season of 12 Colors. Last time we discovered that Jasmine stems from a family where this reverse time traveling has been a thing, and naturally she inherited it from her mother. We also got another chapter with the so far unnamed male protagonist referred to as Jasmine only as Mr. Rabbit. Let's continue. The story after that, Tangerine knows it, right? It doesn't matter if you don't. I have written it all down. I was surprised when Tangerine ran to me in the rain. I told you to stay with him, always, but here you were. That was the Tangerine I knew best. Yes, she is different from me. She has a simple life. She should live at the right time. She's a cute child with a laugh like sunshine. The first time I met Tangerine, I knew she was different. Mother's embrace had always been warm. Father's encouragement always gave me hope. Mr. Rabbit always showed up when I needed him. Tangerine would surely do something important, sometime. Somewhere. I would love to see it with my own eyes, to witness Tangerine realizing her dreams. But the future seemed grim to me. I had sensed my own condition ever since Mother passed away. Since we had different time from the rest of the world, it would be a great burden for us to step into the ordinary land. The inconceivable pain she must have suffered just to give birth to someone like me. The moment I stepped into the outside world, I had immediately learned in the hardest way imaginable. Limbs were as heavy as bags of sand, vision fogged up, became blurry, even breathing felt like inhaling mud. All this time, just to keep in touch with the outside world, was like an unwritten prohibition for us. But I could do anything. If only I could be together with Tangerine and him. We had the best time ever. Yes, I just wanted to treasure it as much as I could. Because of the rain, I hadn't expected you to come. That way you and your brother would be all right. That would be the best for me as well. But when I saw Tangerine with your little orange-colored umbrella, when you slipped, I couldn't help but reach out. When we touched each other, the bubble that had divided Tangerine's time from the rest of the world. My time had combined with hers and tangled inextricably. That was the moment when my time and my past and the fate to ride against the current of time was bound to be handed over to Tangerine. I cried and apologized. There was nothing I could do to take it back. Having fallen into my time, Tangerine could never go back. I was really sorry. That was the reason why, in the end, I threw away all the paper planes made from the pages that recorded all of this. I wished my past could be thrown away as well. I wished Tangerine could have lived freely and forget about all of this. In the end, I just didn't want Tangerine to be like me or Mother, the lonesome travelers of time. But nobody had ever found a way to reverse the river of time. So after I disappear, Tangerine would be all by herself, flowing to the past and an eternity. But Tangerine, I always thought of it had been you who had seen everything, had known all the attempts and hard work done by people like us, who had something unique, something special to call her own. Tangerine, if you ever have a chance to read this, please. Ooh. And we're back to Tangerine's perspective. It took me a long time to finish Jasmine's letter. It was so hard to identify with the paper planes all over the place. But I had learned a lot of things. Stories of the future that had happened already. Stories of the past waiting to happen. and stories of the travelers floating in the current of time. When Jasmine was little, living alone in this world, how did she feel? Was she afraid? Did she feel lonely? Did the pain gnaw away at her heart? Was she overwhelmed by desperation? Despite all this, there had never been one word of gloom. The softness of a breeze and the warmth of the sunshine filled the pages. It was just like a smile. For Jasmine, or her mother, or their countless ancestors, they must have lived to treasure each moment and learned to smile from the bottom of their hearts. I believed it with all my heart. Therefore, Oh, we're over here now. The next time I met Jasmine, she was only 6 years old, alone and huddled in a corner of the house. Her sad face was covered with tear stains. "Who are you?" Sobbing, her eyes were red and swollen. That was the first time she saw me, and the last time I saw her. It took a long time for me to stop her crying. "Would you come out with me? It's better outside, isn't it?" When I looked back, Jasmine was hiding behind the door and stealing glances over in my direction. "It's all right." I crouched and reached out to her. "There's blue sky out here, and grandfather's sun, green grass and colorful flowers. You said you wanted to listen to stories. All right, I'll read stories to you." The thick book of fairy tales, dust on the cover. I knew it all too well. Let's see. What about the story of Miss Duck, or Aunt Goose, and the little geese? Eyes shining with curiosity, Jasmine was moving out a little. I recommend the story of Mr. Rabbit. What do you think? I turned the pages. Once upon a time, there was Mr. Rabbit. As expected, when listening to the story, she was beginning to let her guard down. He was... In the middle of the story, suddenly a gust of wind came. Whoa! Ah! In an exclamation, the old book fell apart at the seams. Pages were sent flying like butterflies. What's up with the wind? I don't know. Look, catch that page. All right. Wait, the cover... We fought with the unwanted wind to rescue the book. In the end, we had collected most of the pages. But there were still some hanging on high branches. Hell, I didn't even remember coming here to make a fool of myself. Jasmine walked to me and settled a stack of paper beside me. Wonderful, thank you. If Jasmine hadn't helped catch some of the pages in time, they would have been lost as well. I muttered and put the pages back into order, keeping them in place with the threads. You're welcome. Blushing a bit, the little girl sat beside me. It's so good to have you here. It sounded like a confession of love, yet she was still a little child. Eh? Jasmine widened her eyes in surprise. Oops, sorry. That was a bit of an exaggeration. I was not good at this, at any point in time. But I know about Jasmine. When I talked with the girl about your parents, what happened in the past and the future, I felt like I could tell her everything, honestly. That's why I came here to see you. That was the only thing important to me. All I want for you is to be able to smile from your heart at all times. That was it. Her eyes widened. She looked as if she couldn't believe it. Yet after a moment, sure, she gave me the first, loveliest smile. The story of Mr. Rabbit? The book was broken and I couldn't read it. I had to make up the rest. Mr. Rabbit was helped by someone very, very kind. That was why he decided to help more people. When Mr. Rabbit met a girl crying and alone, he wiped away her tears. When Mr. Rabbit met a child who missed her mother, he helped to deliver her message. When Mr. Rabbit met a child who was bullied, he helped her to drive the bad kids away. And then I kept on telling her stories. The story of Mr. Rabbit, the story of Mr. Rabbit and the strong kid, the story of Mr. Rabbit and the sweet, lovely sisters. Our story. We would meet each other again and again. We would laugh and cry, and there would be setbacks and obstacles, but we would help each other, going our different ways, and then we would always reunite. How much could she understand? I realized only at this moment I wanted to tell her everything I knew. I wanted her to keep everything in her heart. The past and the future, the two of us. And then the time of departure had come. It was the first time for her, and the last time for me. Jasmine was about to cry. She held onto my sleeves and wouldn't let go. It'll be fine. Gently I stroked her soft hair. We will meet again, many, many times. I smiled to fight the sorrow, to keep the last memory. Just remember our secret code, paper plane. I put one into the palm of her hands, white wings with messages on them. If you write a letter on it, it will find the way to your loved ones. The time would come for us. I want to see your happy smile. And the world blurred. On the other side, there was her. Yes. The face of the 66-year-old Jasmine. It's a promise. She left me with the most brilliant smile I had ever seen. And then the wind raised. A white paper plane streaked across the evening sky, like in our first memory. And then we go to Tangerine. It was there before. Let's see. When I had the chance to see the sky and the sun again, I had grown a little bigger. My hair was also longer. I imitated Jasmine, putting it in the back, and put her straw hat on. For me, it became the source of encouragement, coming from her. I braced myself and stepped into the world outside. And then I did see it. My big brother and myself, both very little. I had an urge to walk up and say hello to them, just like Jasmine. I wanted to ask them to be good to each other, but in the end I just couldn't do it. Was it because of the shyness, or could it be something else? When we brushed past each other as though we were entirely different people. That was it. I decided to take on the time Jasmine had left. I decided to smile my most honest smile and live on. Then the wind raised. Oh. Is there more in the main story, or? Okay. Wait a while. The sun is setting. Do you want to be scolded? The children ran hand in hand on the country road. Tenderly, the scarlet afterglow enveloped everything in its warm embrace. And at the end of the road, there was the figure of a girl. She had long hair and a white-brimmed straw hat. They brushed past, that was all. With a smile, she looked at the children running away into the distance. The girl left, and the wind raised. The wind raised. The white straw hat flew in the wind. The white paper plane slid across the sky. The boy and the girl all raised their heads at the same time. It was like the familiar sunset and the familiar memories. Footsteps, tottering, the little girl ran to her. Your hat! The voice of a child, a straw hat in her hand. In an instant, What was before her coincided with her childhood memory. Oh, I thought there was a choice, but take over the hat. Oh, it's like this. That's the familiar person I've seen before. It's the way I look when the present me grow up. I said thank you with a smile, taking my hat. Then to the child running away, saying, "You're welcome," I waved goodbye. Waving goodbye to my past and future, the only greeting and farewell there will ever be. Then the bubble closed. Goodbye to myself in the past. Goodbye, my brother. The boy and the girl turned as if they heard something. Sliding across the sky, it was a paper plane of the purest white. In the quiet sunset, a light shade of red seeped through. A new chapter is added to Decoding Story. Okay. Well, there's definitely more to this. Let's go in and see. Oh, fragment. Let's take that with us. But first, it'll be just save, just to. When I was wandering around, I found pieces of paper lying in the grass. It was nothing special, really, if you think about it. There were paper planes all over the place to begin with. However, this time I saw pieces of torn-up paper, riddled with words that were hard to make out. The only thing I could be sure of was that it was Jasmine's handwriting. I didn't know why, but I gathered up all the pieces in the grass, trying very hard to understand what she wrote. There was no way I could do it. I always gave up and sprawled out on the grass. I was not good at puzzles, and many of the pieces were lost. Perhaps I should just forget about it. Jasmine's face appeared before me. I started to think about all the things she wanted to tell me, what she wanted me to know. I got up immediately. I had to try harder and harder. There was enough time anyway. If the day came when Tangerine read this, if Tangerine still decided with her own free will to go against the time, to walk the hardest walk, please, would you please? I want to stop writing here. But even with this dilemma in my head, I can't give up on this mere flash of hope. I have to keep on writing. Yes, this is what I want. I have to ask Tangerine to do something for me. Please, save everyone from this endless loop. Up until now, everyone burdened with this kind of time was born in the bubble. Among all the attempts we have done, the only thing we couldn't achieve was at the moment of, and there will be magic. Will there be magic happening? If and collide, will the seal bubble? If so, will it regular time with the outside? And in the end, I couldn't understand it at all. I was trusted to do something very important. Despite this, I still had no idea what it was about. I was at a loss about what I could do and how I should do it. Distressed, I racked my brain for ideas, and eventually fell asleep with the paper playing letters all around me. In my dream, I had a feeling that I could meet again with my father, mother, brother, and Jasmine. They seemed to be talking about something. My heart was filled with guilt and shame when I wrote those words. Of course, I don't want Tangerine to risk herself to do these kind of attempts. If and collide, what would happen? Will it be released from the reverse time, or I picked up the letter, trying to get rid of the unpleasant thought. I tore up the letter, piece by piece. After all, I shouldn't let Tangerine read this letter. Yes, that's it. As long as Tangerine can live her life safe and sound in the future. Okay. Well, I think we have found the end of the game, so to say. I don't see anything else on the screen here. Alright, I will end the episode here. And then I will take some time to talk about this. Because it was something new, it wasn't part of a series. It was a brand new one-off for me. Just like I did with Love at First Sight, which stands dear to my heart. I think the idea behind this story is pretty unique, and considering it's not a big story, it's definitely one that can sort of puzzle your brain a bit. However, I will say that where I felt that this story falls short is that it has a lot of apparent translation issues, where the sentence might have made sense before it was translated to English, and then it wasn't checked to see if it grammatically was correct, or in a very few cases even an understandable sentence. Which some of the time, as you may have noticed while I was reading, that I have altered it myself automatically, because that's just what I do when reading. But sometimes I even had to stop to puzzle myself of what was meant here and how am I supposed to interpret this. I think the overall idea with the artwork and the music is really, really good. And I like the idea of how it's built up with its chapters going jumbled up, switching perspective. That's a cool feature, and it works for this story. I think that's to its merit, is something to be proud of, because that works and it keeps a suspension while at the same time telling the story, albeit in a bit of a jumbled way, but you get there in the end. It's not a linear path, and you somehow end up still at the goal of the goal you saw at the beginning, but maybe you're facing a different way from when you started. All in all, I think it was a cool experience to try a different kind of story. But when that's said, this should also be a marker for people who make visual novels and games in general. If you are working on a game in your native language, that's fine. But when you translate it into English, you need to have someone who can proofread it, someone who can make sure, does this make sense? Is this a viable function? Is this sentence even fitting with the story? I think I saw maybe one or two spelling flaws, so that part it's got down. But it's the grammatical building of sentences that is clear that it's been put through a translating program and then just checked for flaws. And while I understand that smaller studios might not have the budget to hire someone to check a full-blown visual novel, even a small one like this one, for flaws and errors, it pays off, because I wouldn't say it left a sour expression of Season of 12 Colors, but it gets it goes in interfering with the storytelling, and to me that's something you should avoid doing. Storytelling is, especially if you don't have a much more gameplay, which most visual novels don't, and this is despite the building of chapters like this, it's still considered a linear path. You just take it less directly as a normal linear story, like Love at First Sight was. So get someone to proofread your English, or make sure that your English is good enough to make comprehensible sentences when you translate it, because it can make a difference in terms of the output of how does this game feel. Does it feel like it's finished, or does it feel like it has been put into Google Translate and said, yep, that seems fine, there are no red lines under the words, so no words are written wrong. It takes a little bit of more work and probably also a little more resource in terms of monetary items, but it is worth it. Look at Fruit of Qa'Rajh. The Fruit of Qa'Rajh is, and that's just the first chapter in a by now massive franchise, and it's getting it right. Granted, that is by a big studio and with a big publisher for the English title, but still, it can be done right. And Love at First Sight is a small one, I believe, done by a single person, and they got it right. So it's not impossible. But if you're looking for an interesting story that, unlike many visual novels and many animes, isn't about fan service or expectable romance, I would say Season of Colors was a positive jump out of the norm. It was a positive new kind of story, a different way of telling the story. At first, the jumping in chapters when you got past the main story seems a bit confusing, but when you get into the decode part of it, it feels more whole. It feels more like this was planned, and rather than a chaotic, we need to do something to make this game stand out. All in all, I liked it, and considering it's not particularly expensive, granted for the short length it have, I would recommend it. It's an experience in itself, and it doesn't play on a lot of the tropes that many visual novels sometimes can be a bit quick to fall into. So, if you made your own decision, made your own mind, do let me know in the comments. And if you have recommendations for other visual novels that I might not know of, do tell me, because I love visual novels, and I love to play some new and perhaps strange visual novels. Who knows? It might be the next one I let's play. Anyway, that has been it for Season of 12 Colors and for my review sort of feeling of it. So, until next time, take care.